Okay, I guess we'll start then. Perhaps we're missing Netu also, but he'll join us, I hope. So DevSync, I've been working on RC delegations, as you can expect. Mostly been fixing a few bugs, testing thoroughly the whole thing, and trying to change the way, well, not trying, I did that. I changed the way we allocate slots. I'll make a post about that later on, but basically, previously we only allowed the first and second slots to be changed by the with a top witness or the recovery account, and now the user can set its own slots, but we still keep that old capability. It basically gives more control to the user, basically. So yeah, for the next 2 weeks, I think I'll be more focused on Hard Fork 24. I still need to do some tests for the API changes that I did, and also I'll provide support for testing on CAD chat and stuff like this. Bucktrace, you want to go next?
Sure. We've done the first, I guess we've finished the continuous integration work that we initially wanted to get done, and that's working now. We do want to make one further step, though, to get the Python API level regression tests integrated as well. So that's kind of the next step there. But I don't anticipate that'll take too long. We'll probably create a separate issue for that. We've got a Docker file to generate witness nodes, fat node, and test nets in there. And we're sort of still checking over that. We've done the Steam DAO rename, and we've done most of the work for rebranding the code base. This is basically going in and replacing Steam with Hive, et cetera, in the code. We've got one more change we want to make associated with that, but we're kind of holding off on that change until some other changes get done, because it's likely to cause conflicts if we do it now. But essentially, most of the rebranding is done in the blockchain code itself. I think someone else is working and doing HiveMind related branding changes, MSWATI, I believe. We've also doing some other work which isn't yet visible. A lot of it's optimization work. So just sort of report some of what we've done on that. We've had significant memory savings from that. We've reduced the memory requirements for a witness node by at least 14 gigs right now. That's memory requirements to run. And that'll also apply similar or better savings to the other types of nodes as well. What other than that? We've decided to add in a few more changes. Basically, we're kind of looking at this point at planning at least 2 to 3 more weeks before we do a code freeze. So we decided to get in a few more changes that would be helpful for exchanges and for people launching nodes for the first time. So we're adding support for state snapshots, and we're also working on basically being able to interrupt the reindex or replay, whatever you want to call it, while it's running, and then restart it. And then I guess the final thing is we've completed the chain ID code change, and Roland has deployed that as a test net. So that's kind of one of the more important things I think at this point is anyone who's got an app, make sure, first of all, that your library is supporting the chain ID change. And if it's not, either modify it yourself or bug the people who are responsible for that library to test it against the testnet role and set up. And after they've done that, I recommend any app also test itself against the testnet. So that's probably the big work we've done right now. So who else wants to take it next or ask questions?
Yeah, I can just add up. Indeed, I didn't do that much, only set up the testnet. Well, I'm here to do logistic help and learn along the way. So the testnet is indeed running. I will reshare the URL again. I want to remark that this is a simple testnet where one witness, init miner, is signing all the blocks with enable stale, which is not necessary anymore, I guess. I'm not sure about that, but So it's not a full testnet with 21 witnesses signing. But I guess once we have the code freeze, we will need to set up a proper testnet to continue testing, especially hard fork with 21 witnesses, because I'm really curious how that turns out with with the signature change broadcasted exactly on the hard fork time or something like that. Okay, that's it.
I did think of one thing I forgot, which was the work of half of our group here. While one group has been working on the blockchain code, the other side has been working on the HiveMind code. We're basically doing a couple of things there. We're working on infrastructure support, and we're also working on the code itself at various levels for HiveMind. So infrastructure level support, I mean, setting up failover support so that if one of the nodes goes down, the others will fail over. And that's all working pretty well right now. So we've got four nodes running behind the scenes, behind our Juicy, and we can swap in and out between those pretty easily. And so we use one for basically development. So we'll make changes there, and then we'll swap it in after some testing just to be sure it can handle inside the production environment. And so mostly the changes we're making there right now in HiveMind are all performance improvements. So we've been optimizing a lot of the queries to get the speed up in terms of the response time, especially the latency.
Cool.
I guess one more thing is the image server. The image server stuff is mostly done at the infrastructure level. The only thing left that we're really working on now is how to safely mirror the final data that's in the file storage, the file server storage, so that we can have that distributed well across a bunch of nodes. And I guess ultimately our idea is that once that's set up properly, someone could just register themselves to be a backup data source, and they would basically get pushed the image server data. So that's about it.
Okay, nice. I guess the whole HiveMind discussion is a nice segue on one of our points for today, which is the API working group and how we should evolve HiveMind APIs, how much we should want to basically offload off the SteamD APIs and get onto HiveMind instead. Sadly, this was recommended by Sergio, which is not here today. But I guess this is a good discussion to have. How much should we want to offload off HiveMind? In my opinion, I think it's a great way to, I mean, there is no harm in just trying to get as much out of SteamD and as much on HiveMind. There is pretty much no drawback, except the fact that you have to sync up a new node. But
yeah, for sure. I totally agree. So I guess in terms of organization, there's probably, I guess, at least two sort of roles that I would see in that for an API working group. We need one of basically people who are, I guess, specifying out what kind of APIs we want to support, and that's going to come primarily from the apps side of things. Obviously from the front ends for the posting and things like that, but from, I suppose, other apps as well. So maybe if we have an apps working group, it can also be an API working group. But then on the other side, we also have to have a group of people who are also, I guess, implementing these APIs in the HiveMind. So certainly my group can be involved in that. And like I said, there's this other guy who seems to be interested in doing that too. So he should probably be pulled into the API working group as well. That's his handle is IMSWATI, but I haven't talked to him or anything. I don't know if anyone else has.
I haven't either.
He seems to be working mostly independently as far as I can tell.
Yeah, same. Well, first of all, we can just have just get all of the dapps together in a room and just try to see what their use of HiveMind
starting
is.
Point.
For instance, we at SteamPress use a ton of calls to HiveMind to render our comment section. And out of HiveMind, we don't use that much data. But it would be really nice if we could have HiveMind kind of the same way as SteamNode, where you can load more or less data depending on your use. Because, for instance, icon history would be really useful to have in a HiveMind layout, aka SQL able, but it's a huge amount of data, so you don't necessarily want to have a node for that. So I think one of the obvious, or perhaps not that obvious, improvements would be having a modular HiveMind configuration. But yeah.
So by modular, do you mean being able to store different sets of tables depending on your needs?
Yeah, basically. Like,
okay.
let's say you have a basic
that's
schema,
a good idea.
And then when you load up the Docker, you say, oh, I want this or I want that. I mean, I think we can make an easy parallel between SteamD and HiveMind at this point.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting idea. So I guess what we'd want to do something like that, we'd start off by categorizing the APIs in terms of what tables they needed access to, what data needed to be put into the database for that. So sort of an organization of the HiveMind API, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. But then this is where we should also start to think about the underlying core, because right now we use Postgres, and if we are to start storing that much data, it may be more worth it to use like Redis or something else. Not Redis, sorry. It's the one in Ruby. I don't remember the name. But yeah, perhaps we should also explore other database engines to see if some are more fit for some more use cases. Because I don't know how much Wordscape really thought out HiveMind and in terms of optimizing the queries, etc. But yeah,
well, there's a lot of work being done on the queries right now, I can tell you. That's most of the problem is in the queries.
Yeah, definitely. Like, for instance, I think most of the DApp I spoke with, one of the very first things I added was indexes on author and permalinks on the post table, because that's one thing you grow with, and no one is, and you basically need indexes if you want any sort of useful performance on it.
Yeah, there's kind of two issues really. There's one is the indexes. There needs to be more indexes, and the other one, and the other probably major one is actually there's a bunch of like iterative queries that can be collapsed into one query. That's probably the biggest thing, other than the indexes.
Is there that much to gain by optimizing the?
Yes.
Because this is for the sync.
It's huge.
This is for the
it's like 100x.
Right? Oh wow.
It's 100x.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I think this is not a discussion for today. This was more of like just to brainstorm a bit on that, and then I guess I'll try to get everyone in another discussion, probably by text, because that would make more sense.
I'm thinking we should probably create a channel in the new Mattermost for this, just for the API. Or we call it dapps or API, one of the two. But
and then I think just having everyone write what their use case is and what they would want to see would already help us a ton.
Yeah, right. I think the first thing is we need to collect what kind of functionality is desired and see if, because there's probably a lot of commonality in that, and ideally is figure out exactly what the commonality is. And
also what's the change, because I know everyone is running their own kind of flavored homebrew HiveMind. So if we can get all of those improvements, quote unquote, that would be good. For instance, the indexes. But yeah, any more thoughts on this subject by the others?
Oh, it looks like Bartek mentioned something. He says, as for API talk, one of the most important things is elimination of condenser API.
Yeah, that would be huge, but it's like a huge work.
Yes, this is huge work, but it will allow us to make to clean up the code and really make it simpler other changes, because this API is very is bad constructed and sometimes it's redundant to other APIs. Generally, we should eliminate it and definitely avoid using in third-party libraries and front-end applications. So I'd like see this change as the first one in redesigning APIs, which is a complex process, and other changes probably will need much much further and much more analysis and design. Also, together with front-end guys and library maintainers.
Well, I think Bartek does have a good point. Probably one of the first steps that we should talk about when we form this new group is we look over what the APIs are that are currently being used, not only ones we want to add, but what we've currently got and how we can swap over those that are using portions of those API that are condenser API and into something else. So find out if we need to add a new API to support that. And I mean, we've got an issue for that and people have already started working on it, but it's probably worth a group discussion as well in text.
Yeah, it would be interesting to roll out the condenser API in, over several forks so that we can like deprecate like one set of calls and another set of calls. That way there isn't like a huge strain on the apps. Like every if they just have to migrate only a part of their app now and then, that shouldn't put as much.
So you're suggesting doing well, I guess there's, I guess you're talking about APIs that don't have an immediate replacement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing to do is sort of identify and change everything that has an immediate replacement. So we sort of need somebody to just go through and say, this API should be complete, this condenser API should be completely replaceable. So you shouldn't be using it. So you should have a list of all the APIs that no one should be using because there's an easy replacement right now. And then after that, we could have people start tagging APIs that they do use that apparently don't have an immediate replacement, and we can, work on what we should do in those cases.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned there was an issue in this or not?
Yeah, there is. I created something for it I created an initial like starting one in the tasks without projects, and then suggested that everybody in their own individual libraries create a separate task for that library to address the point in that library.
Oh yeah, 1 week ago I noticed. Nice.
But as part of that, I guess the idea of we should get a list of all the functions that are immediately replaceable and list them out somewhere, probably maybe in that upper level task in projects without tasks or whatever it's called, tasks without projects.
That implies changing the CLI wallet as well, right? So is it, I think.
What's that? I'm sorry, say it again. Something about the CLI wallet.
Yeah, I think we need to change the CLI wallet.
Yeah, the CLI wallet also has a,
because it uses exclusively condenser API, if I remember well.
Yeah.
Yes, and Delphi Mic is not working.
Yeah, that's probably something the blockchain team can take on, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. We did get rid of getState, right? It was deprecated like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, it is still in the code, so
yeah.
that is not eliminated from the part mostly interested for me.
Yeah. I mean, getState was very easy, but it did serve a great purpose to get all of the comments in one call, which now requires basically HiveMind or your stack. But yeah, perhaps we could try to find a replacement and optimize it. I mean, create a replacement, but that's for another call. So the chain ID swap, we already spoke a bit about it, but I guess we should just like enforce testing as much as possible. It would be great to write up a post to explain to all the app owners what it entails and what they should do. Although it's easy, like just test against the testnet. But I assume we really, as a core team, we should do as much as possible to like prevent a cataclysmic result at the end of the hard fork where nothing works because the app owners did not change their libraries.
Yeah, and it's mostly the libraries themselves, right? That's what we need to change. Any library that does transactions is essentially what needs to change. If your library doesn't actually create transactions, it's not an issue. But for like Hive.js and dsteam, and for the other ones as well, the Python libraries, for example. So we just kind of need every library guy to, if he has a indicate, drop a note on the top level issue, if their library is not mentioned, and then indicate whether they've made changes or needed to make changes. So we just need to check them all off and be sure we've got all the libraries.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's not as bad. We just need to tell everyone to update, basically. Do we have, so your group is working on Steam.js right now for this change, right? Just trying to
block
figure
trades?
out. Yeah.
Not that I won't know. I mean, we aren't doing the chain ID change. I assume it would be one of the other people, but
I'm just trying to figure out if we need to ping people to do it or not, basically.
yeah, I think we probably do.
Okay. Okay. I'll make a task and ping people. Okay, great. And now the weekly discuss ongoing issues, blah, blah, blah. Let me go over. Okay, so first, it's good that I have you block trades, because I noticed that the Hive development funds payout are slightly wrong. There is like, I think it's like a precision issue. If you, for instance, if you look at Netflix's profile, he's earning 6.240 HBD per hour, even though his proposal is 150 HBD. And basically, it's like off by a very tiny amount. And so
yeah, I saw the issue for this.
yeah.
I assume it needs to get looked at some point, but
yeah,
it didn't seem high enough priority that I hadn't assigned anyone to it yet.
I just wanted your input. If it's like by design, if you like
not that I'm aware of, and
okay,
I could ask. It doesn't sound like something that was by design.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. Oh yeah, we just like round up to the nearest, and then that's like a byproduct.
I can't say that that's not true, but I wouldn't. It's not something I'd expect.
Yeah. Okay. There is an issue in the Cli Wallet, but I haven't seen enough of it yet. But I guess this is. I guess bugs can just be looked at later on. So first, this basically make claimed account transferables. Thoughts? I think there is no harm in that. One issue is that it might become a commodity, and then people will sell stuff, and it kind of loses its original purpose. But at the same time, it's quite useful to be able to just send it to people. Like for instance, I have quite a few that I don't use, and I'd rather just give them to Farasim for his Hive invite system. And since
so you're talking about being able to transfer accounts?
Transfer claim accounts, tokens.
Yeah. Are you talking about adding the ability to do that? Because right now you can't do that, right?
Yeah, you can do that. Can't.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, I think it's a feature that's not terribly important, but other people may disagree with me on this.
Well,
I mean, I guess my opinion is, if you don't want to use accounts, don't claim them. If you don't claim them, they become cheaper for other people to claim, because it's it's a sort of, it's a RC related thing. So the fewer people who claim accounts, the cheaper it is for someone else to claim them.
Yeah, the issue is that right now pretty much everyone is just claiming them because they can, and perhaps perhaps it's just a social issue. I mean, perhaps it shouldn't be solved with the code. And also, if we make them transferable and then they get a value, basically, because I guess the market
it could make the problem only worse. At this point, maybe people will start to say, why am I claiming all these accounts I never planned to use?
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not really keen on making it an economic thing to be able to claim accounts and then sell them.
Yeah, I don't know how we could prevent them from being that.
I mean, if they claim them and just don't use them, well, it just makes it a more scarce resource, I guess. That's all.
Yeah. Some discussion on power downtime. Still not. I guess this needs its call in itself. Basically, reduce it to 4 weeks, or the whole proposal by that Steemit did back in the days, to have a thing where you can lock for as long as you want, and the longer you lock, the more return you get, stuff like this. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if anything new has come up in that. I mean, I guess the same ideas are out there.
Yeah, still the same ideas.
It feels like it's a community discussion more than a dev discussion, really.
Yeah, true. Okay, so there is also an issue about making proposal work. I don't know how much you want, since you did the original dev, I don't know how much you want to do dev and changes, because there is like a lot of changes that need to be done. Well, not need, but would be nice to have.
Talking about in the proposal system?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm surely open to discussion changes to the proposal system.
Yeah, basically, there are like a lot of quick wins that I see. For instance, making it first of all, not clearing the proposals once they are done, so you can still query them back. Seeing the votes real time. Making.
Yeah, I actually want to change we originally had it so that you could see votes. You could see the votes without having to add them all up, especially for proposals that aren't yet active. And so I actually threw in an issue for that already, because I really think that's useful and it'll solve some problems for the front ends. Just kind of a side thing, I've been looking at the implementation of how proposals are displayed in hive.blog, and I really don't like it at all. One of the things I found really annoying was it was very difficult to see proposals that aren't yet active, because they basically show up at the very, very bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think there's some changes that need to be made there, both the front end and the back end. Another thing that's really I've been thinking about a lot lately is, and I know somebody's mentioned it recently too, which got me looking at it again, which was ability to do basically vote against a proposal. And so somebody linked to Dan Larimer's arguments against it and why they removed it from BitShares, and I read through all that. But at the end, I wasn't very convinced that it made a lot of sense not to have negative votes. Very theoretical discussions of why you might not want to have negative votes, but I saw some very practical ones. The one that really occurs to me is when you look at a proposal, you may have never viewed a proposal before. So a negative vote has some more meaning, in my opinion. It means you've read the proposal and voted against it, whereas voting for everything and not voting for that proposal is not the same thing in my mind. I think they're very different things. I think a negative vote is a much more clear expression of a desire not to fund something. So I think they do make sense from that perspective.
Yeah, so. I see your point. I'm still on the fence with it, because it basically increases the. Well, on one hand, it would also be allowed to have the return proposal to be lower, because that means you can have like you can have an easier access, and proposals that are considered bad by the community will get them voted. So that would be easier. But that also means more risk when making proposals, because basically you can get downvoted. Like someone could basically double his power by voting the original proposal and then downvoting you. And so
that but everybody's power is effectively increased, I guess, right?
Yeah. So that.
I mean, everybody could just downvote the negative. If you downvoted that proposal, everybody can, in theory, also downvote the return proposal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't think it changes the power for anyone, but what it does is make a clear difference between having not reviewed a proposal at all and reviewed it.
So you'd like,
because right now, if I vote up a proposal, I read that proposal.
Yeah, true.
But if I didn't vote a proposal, you don't know if I didn't read it at all, or just didn't feel like funding it.
I mean, I don't think it should be binary like, okay, I want to fund it, or this should not get funded.
You have three choices, right? I could say I want to fund it. I'll leave it up. I don't care that much. I'll leave it up to other people, or I actively dislike it. Being able to negative vote allows you to express an opinion you couldn't express before.
Math is just up to.
Yes, it's a negative opinion, but it may be valid. Certainly not all proposals need to be funded, and shouldn't be.
Yeah, Ronan is bringing up that this could also be done through a percentage weighted vote instead of having binary I vote or I do not vote.
Yeah, there's also, right. So there's two separate issues, I guess, right? The one is a weighted vote, and one is a a negative vote. So I don't know that even percentage vote says the same thing, because again, if you haven't voted on it at all, that may mean you just never read the proposal yet.
Yeah, true.
So
But like,
I could see an argument for both or either. The weighted vote, I guess, is more about giving you granular control over what gets in and what doesn't. But I'm not sure. I had to think about the weighted more. I think it's a more complicated issue.
Yeah, I think it adds a set of one. I think we should also think of like, what problem does this actually solve? And right now, the Hive fund is working like quite well in the end.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I don't know if you should focus that much effort into like trying to redo it. Well, not redo it, but like improve it. Apart from the obvious things, which are the voting being displayed and the purge on the old proposals.
So Roland's suggesting some other ways to handle percentage voting, but 1% to indicate you've read it.
I mean, that works. But I mean, this is definitely something that should just be handled on the front-end side. Like, just have a Hive-minded thing, or just
yeah, you could indicate you've read it without.
Yeah, ageism thing where you tick.
Yeah, that's true. It could certainly be done that way.
But also, I mean, as a whale, I mean, I'm not a whale, but if I were a whale, would I really want to like tick? Oh yeah, I've read it. I've read this, because it just means like people would come to me and be like, oh yeah, you've read it, but why didn't you vote, etc.
No, I mean, I don't think it's any different, because for a whale, I can say that people will contact you regardless.
Okay, that's a good point.
If you haven't read it, they're more likely to contact you. If you've read it, if they can see you've read it, then they can say, oh, he really wasn't interested.
Yeah, and then it becomes tricky to contact you and be like, please, please vote.
But it's interesting about the proposals that indeed this is for some it's working, for some it's not, and now you especially see people, having strong opinions about certain proposals. We all live in different economies. Everybody has different view about what something is worth. So for example, the current issues where some people ask too much money for a certain proposal. I can see that some people object some other folks amount of money per day paid out or requested to be paid out. So then what one could do is make 4 proposals for the same thing, right? So you can make one, okay, I did this, or I'm doing this, and I'm asking $10 per day. And then, but if you think it's worth $20, I'm asking $20. So you make 5 proposals. But another thing could maybe be that the community could vote on, you could set a range where you say, okay, I think this is worth between $50 and $200 per day. What do you think? And then people can vote, but also maybe vote something like this. It's an idea, but yeah, I don't know.
It's a good idea just to say, okay, I'll spend like 10 hours a week on this, but if you fund me to this amount, I'll spend 20 hours, etc. I think it's an interesting idea. But then how you would have like several, like let's say you have, you could have like kind of like a Patreon thing where if you pass a certain threshold, then you get to this much funding.
Yeah, so this is an interesting how to add that. That's true. Would you do it with options, or would you do it with the weight? Actually, if I would vote with 50% of your proposal, would that mean that I would vote for half of the amount per day? Maybe that could be a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we can have more discussions about this. Definitely a lot of ideas all around.
Well, one thing you could do is just stop voting for the proposal at some point.
Yeah, but that's tricky because if you're as an individual, if you may not have the power you may be voting on it, and then it gets like way up, and you're like, okay, now I don't want it funded anymore, and you vote, but
you don't have so much control.
I mean, I guess you have, but but yeah, interesting thoughts around.
I mean, it's a yes or no, right? It's either funded or not funded. There is no option where you can get only 1/3 of the amount.
Yeah, a lesser amount. I mean, yeah, there is, but it's only by cutting off the funding early is essentially the only way to do it right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and I mean, it also depends a little bit on the nature of the proposal. Is you know, you obviously can't just cut it off early if it's continuing work and they can just stop. So, yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know that it's not possible to do this now, right? I mean, somebody can make a proposal and it's not voted in, and then they can make another proposal at a lower amount and see if that gets voted in, right? I mean,
yeah, definitely.
I mean, generally in a negotiation, your best approach is not to offer 4 prices to someone
Yeah,
and let them pick the price they want, because I guarantee you they will pick the lowest price in most cases.
I guess we could just have the possibility to change the amount to a lower amount later on. So because the issue is this,
yeah,
is that
so that would make a lot of sense. We could allow someone an owner of a proposal to lower their amount. That seems totally reasonable that would be allowed, and probably not that complicated.
Yeah, because the main issue right now with this approach and why people are trying high and then not at all is that you basically have to try, and then if you miss, you just lost 10 HBD, which it's not that much, but for some people it is. And at some point you don't want to like try like 5 different prices, because
and that's the whole point of the 10 SPD, right?
Yeah, definitely. But then it would open up interesting conversation, because right now you cannot go to someone and say, oh, by the way, you're asking too much, reduce it, because the guy is not going to make another proposal and ask for and tell everyone, oh yeah, you voted on this one, but please vote on the other one.
Well, they got to re-vote on it. Yeah, it's
because
asking for a second vote. I think that's the hard thing, is asking for people to vote for your proposal again is a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly.
If they've approved a higher amount, it feels like it's maybe allowing an easy way to lower the amount would not be
yeah, I think it would be a great
deal.
Great improvement. I'll make an issue for that.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
What else? I think a great thing about this would be Inertia, who did a proposal, who got funded a few times for his documentation proposals, and did one at 500 and people did not agree. Then did one at 200 and people still did not agree, but I think people still agree for 100. And I think it would be a great use case. His case
yeah,
would be a great use case.
Allowing it to people not, I mean, it takes the load off people from having to vote, and it's a cognitive reduction on them. So yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And it feels computational, like it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's like just one database modify. I really don't think it would be that hard. And then you don't allow it to go higher. I mean, it would be cool to have like a base price and then allow it to go lower, but not raise it again. Yeah, I could do that. Crimson is doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, you know me. Yeah, I think Crimson is right when she says it's like a cultural issue when you set it and forget it. Not that many people are reviewing proposals. I think on the front end side, we should try to have perhaps some notifications about like, oh, by the way, there is a new proposal that came up. Do you want to review it? Or things like this. It's kind of the witness problems, but like it's like the same problem as the witnesses, where people just vote for witnesses and then don't check it ever again. And we have the same thing with like proposals. And this is something we should really think about on how to solve, probably on different end.
Well, I mean, I think the notification is other people. If somebody thinks that someone's not doing the job, then I think it's somebody's responsibility to raise the issue. And I mean, it happens, right? I've seen that happen a couple of times. Someone said, "Hey, this guy's not really doing the work. Why are we voting for him?" I mean,
yeah, true.
I mean, you could be arguing there's all these people who are voting for small proposals. I mean, voting proposals, never paying any attention, but I don't know that a lot of that's going on. I mean, I think the most interesting case is the case where the front end app actually says, "Would you like to vote for my proposal?" It keeps asking you that question.
Yeah, true. But I mean, and it's fair game, and it worked in the end. So why not? So yeah, look, glossing over the thing. So I think the most thing most people are asking these days is when half of 24. So I think we should try to have a code freeze. You mentioned in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'd like to. I think that's really the outside. We should try to get everything closed out in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's realistic. Let's try to have like a tentative date, and at this time, if you feel it's not ready, then we can always push it. But that way we have like a hard line, and
yeah,
we can
make sure people are pushing to get their libraries working with the chain ID change, for instance.
So in 3 weeks, that's 25th of May. Yeah, of May. Does that sound right for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because then if we allow a month, that's as for June, and then half for 25, we'll do a ton of changes. So I'm mostly thinking that way because I think we'll try to get SMT for half for 26 or 27. And if each hard fork takes like several months, we want to try to get this one as fast as possible. And also get to hard fork 25, which should allow for much more changes, like RC delegations. By the way, do we want the conversion from the Steemit Ninja Mine to DAO for 24 or 25?
That's a good question. I would say we should probably try it for 24, but
I don't think there is any rush really in the end.
Yeah, I think we're okay if it doesn't make it in. There's a fair amount flowing out now from the.
Yeah, we are still far from it. I mean, if we were capped and some people weren't funded because there isn't enough on the day, but right now we are still far off from it.
Yeah, the only thing I was say is it's probably simple enough to do that we might be able to get it in 3 weeks, but.
Yeah, true. I guess it depends on Netu and how he feels about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it. Any questions from the wide audience? Great. Okay, well, see you in. Oh, then that's perfect because next time it's in 2 weeks. That's 1 week before the code freeze. Extended time 30 days is one of soft requirements. Yes, that's interesting because I've been hearing the 30 days after freeze a lot of times. And do they really need 30 days just to update a node? That feels like
we don't. So I mean, it can be done quicker, and some of the changes we're doing now will actually make it much quicker, anyways. So we will probably be relaxing that requirement, but
yeah,
I don't think it's necessarily that bad. I guess we'll kind of see how things go. I guess.
Yeah, because
we'll do some tests once we've got the state stuff in there, the state capture stuff in there. We can do some experiments and see what's really
I'm so
required.
hyped about this.
I feel like 2 weeks is probably sufficient, but
yeah, probably. Hopefully, yeah, that should be enough. Because 2 weeks is like much more lean in terms of upgrades, so that we are not like, oh yeah, so if we code freeze now, then it takes like a month, and then we can like start to think about the next one. That's kind of a top requirement. But yeah, I think this is some of the discussions we need to have with exchanges after half of 24, when we are we can like prove that they can update really quickly and without as much hassle as before.
Yep.
One last question about the optimization you've mentioned. So that's only for non-Mira node, right?
No, it's for all nodes. I mean, even okay, yeah, for Mira nodes need other optimizations.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay, cool. Very excited to read all of that.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Thanks.
all for me. Thank
Yep,
you
me
all,
too.
and see you next time. Yeah. Oh, yeah. One last thing. How did you feel about that time? Because we have less people than the other time. So and originally we tried that time just before because we could have more people. So
yeah, I guess we can maybe alternate back and forth or something like that.
Yeah, I guess next time we can try -1 and see how that goes. And yeah, ultimately we'll just try. Okay, thank you all.
That's fine by me. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.